Hey guys, welcome back to Toshi's Tulpa Guide. I'm glad to see you guys here again. We're going to be talking a little bit today about um, planning, Tulpa planning, and whether you should or shouldn't. And the short answer is it doesn't matter. If you want to plan out Tulpa, you can. If you don't want to, that's perfectly okay too. And by planning, I mean predetermining things like personality, form, shape, name, these kinds of things. Of course, I chose not to do that, but it is part of Tulpamancy and it does work for a lot of people. And it's something we got to talk about. So let's get right into it. Uh, uh, just as a quick disclaimer, this can be absolutely skipped if you do not want to do it. Okay? If you just want your tulpa to evolve naturally on its own, you can absolutely do that. There is nothing wrong with it. It works great. And yeah, I mean, it works great. But if you want to and you want a little bit more control about how your tulpa is going to turn out, you can absolutely plan for this. Um, a lot of guides and people will suggest, writing out a list of like personality traits that okay? Like if you want your tulpa to be compassionate, write compassion or write out a bunch of virtues or just any kind of random personality traits. You can write as many as you want. Um, but the more solid the personality, the better chances you're gonna have at having the tulpa's personality reflect those particular things. Okay? So, what what you're going to do after you've written down personality traits, okay? You have a big list of them. I don't know, 10, 15, 20, however many you think is necessary. During your active forcing sessions, you're going to sit down while actively forcing and focusing on your tulpa. You're going to explain to your tulpa what each of these things mean, each of these traits mean in detail, long detail, much as detail as possible, and then you will imagine and explain how a person with this trait would react to as many different situations as possible. If you can, I would take an hour on each trait, going over trait description in as much detail as possible and giving scenarios for this trait and how someone with this trait would act in this particular situation or this particular situation or this particular situation. And the more examples you give, the more concrete you can info- reinforce the idea of that personality trait into your tulpa. Okay? And your tulpa will absorb this because in the beginning, tulpas don't do anything but absorb information. Much like a baby absorbs information and then mimics. So a tulpa, matures much, much faster. But, doing this for an hour on each trait and then repeated times if you want to is very, very helpful in forming the personality you want your tulpa to have. Um, and this has worked for a lot of people. Okay. I've talked to a lot of tulpamancers and this has really, really worked. Um, some people will another technique for forcing the personality would be to imagine, during your forcing sessions, um, you take the personality trait, and then you imagine it becoming like a potion, okay? And then you give the potion to the tulpa to drink, and then as they drink it, they gain that trait. You know, some people have had success with that. And, you know, you'd have to do that pretty much over and over again to reinforce it. But yes, this is a thing you can do. Or if you use the Phoenix technique of forcing, you can literally just throw the trait into the, you know, the flame spirit or spirit, and it'll burn up and soak in, you know? So, you know, that's another way of personality force. So let's move away from the personality forcing and go to basing your character or basing your tulpa off of a character. This can be done. I don't personally recommend it, but that I have heard great successes have come from it. So, my feelings aside, you absolutely can base your tulpa on an existing character. It will be easier to, you know, come up with examples of how the character would act. Um, but there's not going to be a whole lot of rigidity there for your tulpa to be able to develop its own personality, if you know what I mean. And also, it doesn't always, but it can cause identity crises pretty early in the tulpa's life. So, you know, I would take caution, but you can absolutely base a tulpa off of a character. I would take caution in this and make sure the tulpa understands they are not this character, that their personality is similar to this character, or their form is similar to this character. If that makes sense, guys. 'Cause you don't want to have, you know, another person in your head with an identity crisis. I mean, you know, it gets complicated with two or more personalities in your head anyway. Um, but you know, having two personalities in there, one with an identity crisis and one trying to help with the identity crisis, you know, it's just going to cause a crisis all around. So, you know, let's try to be really careful when we're doing that. Okay? If we're going to base Tulpa personalities off of fictional characters, absolutely instill the fact that they are not this person. You know, that way they don't have an identity crisis. You know, you can say things like similar or, you know, whatever, but they are not that person. They cannot be that person. That person is fiction. Okay? So, you know, think of the tulpa, think of its feelers, you know, don't give it bad feelers. So just be really careful with that. People have had good success with it. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying be careful with it if you plan on doing it. All right? So, all right, let's move on to form. Form, you can give your tulpa a form if you wish. Again, this is not necessary. My tulpa started out as a blue fiery ball and kind of evolved from there. She chose her own form, everything. So, and you know, if you don't assign a form to your tulpa will choose their own form. Um, where I personally believe this to be the best way, for some people it helps to give a form, to draw it out, to make pictures of it, to do whatever you can, you know? And I understand this. Some people it's going to really, really help have a set based form. Remember, though, your tulpa will deviate. Tulpas are their own people, and they will identify how they identify. Not much you can do about it, okay? You know, your tulpa may want to identify as this, or a cheese sandwich, or a woman, a man, a dragon, a pony. You never know. All right. They're going to identify how they're going to identify, regardless of what you do. You can push that in the direction you want it to go, but we remember that these are their own people. They are sentient beings, and they will identify how they identify, and they will not care. Well, they might care, but they're going to identify how they identify, regardless of anything else. So, yeah, giving a base form is fine. They will deviate, they will change it. That is okay. That is expected. That is healthy. All right? If your tulpas want to deviate and change their form, absolutely fine, and you should be absolutely supportive. If they want to change their personality around, absolutely supportive. Perfectly fine. Your tulpas will generally become what you need them to be. In general, tulpas will become what you need them to be. The intention while you're creating them is the most important thing. And if you go in with the right intentions, they will become what you need. Maybe not what you want, but always what you need. Anyway, guys, that has been a nice little rant and a video for today. I'm glad you guys are sticking with me through this. And, if you're not subscribed, quit lurking in the shadows. It's really creepy. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And we will see you next time, y'all.